Over the last few years, the number of horror games that have been revealed has been astonishing, and developers have become dedicated to the genre like never before. The reason for this substantial improvement is mostly the rise of indie developers, a surprising competitor in the industry that can even outshadow the AAA side sometimes. However, this also led to a saturated space of trailers and gameplay footage of games that have been around for years, and people to this day still don't know if they're even coming or not. We've been seeing unbelievably impressive videos of games being announced, but so far they have never seen the light of day. This includes both AAA and indie titles that we are eagerly waiting to put our hands on, but it seems like our wait is longer than we thought. This is why in this video, I decided to talk about some of the games that made me reach a point where I was actually thinking that they'd never come out. I'm not necessarily positive about their future, and I know that I can be wrong, but I want to share my ideas with you because there are a lot of reasons that push me to believe that we'll never get our hands on them, whether because they'll get cancelled or simply because they are not real in the first place. So without further ado, let's start. War Trauma is a bizarre game in every sense of the word, not just because of its spooky gameplay and story, but also because it simply refuses to be released. This indie game has been on my wish list for the last 2 years, and I was anticipating it to come out in 2022. But 2022 has passed, and we have nothing, and 2023 was not any different. Here we are now in June 2024, and the game's release date is still a mystery. For those of you who are not familiar with the game, War Trauma is basically a psychological experience designed to be similar to PT as much as possible, but also with a unique story and perspective. The timeline here is a few years after the Second World War, and you play as a traumatized German soldier who simply can't delete the horrifying memories from his head. The gameplay contains flashbacks, nightmares, and unwanted thoughts about the traumatic events. The protagonist here is simply afraid of anything related to the past, but the apartment itself seems to remind him of events that he wishes to forget. These memories include losing comrades, friends, or family members in war, but it also seems that the soldier is battling with his guilt and regret, likely because he did some bad stuff too. All of this reminds me a lot of PT because almost every element I mention can be felt in PT, especially if you know the backstory. However, what makes War Trauma unique is that it has a style of oppressive visuals that makes you scared by default. The flat is designed to make you feel like you're actually in the 1950s, and the details in the kitchen specifically are unbelievably impressive in a creepy way. The rusty fridge, the dead bugs on the oven, and even the dusty walls look insanely realistic. This apartment makes me scared to see it, let alone live in it or explore it. The low lighting is also chilling, but the atmosphere gets even more haunting when you're in the dark. Anyway, with that being said, the real question is, will this game ever come out? Well, to be fair, it's possible, but I feel the developer is having a hard time finishing it or something. It has a free demo that you can play right now, and it also had a new trailer last year, but we're basically seeing these stuff for the last 3 years, which is a very long time for an indie game. The demo has been around for years now, but the full game has yet to be seen. The Steam page simply says coming soon, but soon, in such cases, usually means never. It's really sad because I was hoping for this game to be the next from the darkness, which is arguably the best indie horror game I played that takes place in an apartment. So far, I still have some hope for it, But to be honest, the percentage of hope is shrinking every day because it's not common for indie games to take this long to release after a demo becomes available.
You're too late. They're all gone.
You won't make it.
This game was mentioned on our channel multiple times, and every time we say it's coming out in a certain year, it simply doesn't. The reason why this game caught my attention, and I consider it a huge deal for survival fans, is because it pretty much looks like an amazing Silent Hill game from the 2000s. And even though there are some modern features, it still has that classic vibe we miss. If you don't believe me, then please remember that the story here revolves around Isaac, a man who returns to his hometown, which is called Lowell, years after the tragic loss of his only son. However, the town is no longer the familiar place he once knew. It has transformed into something dark and sinister, shrouded in bitterness, despair, agony, and even haunting rumors of his son's presence. Isaac here hopes to find his son, and that's why he delves deeper into the town's mysteries, only to uncover a horrifying truth. The town has basically become a breeding ground for psychological horrors and monstrous creatures lurking in the shadows and preying on the remaining inhabitants. However, we don't even know if all of this is real or simply something on his mind due to his desperation to find his son. If you're familiar with Silent Hill 2, then all the themes I mentioned probably triggered some memories in your mind because it's pretty much the same concept. Another reason that made me immediately excited for this experience is how incredibly well the atmosphere is designed. When you watch the trailers and see some of the gameplay, you can actually feel how disturbing the town is and how sanity here is basically lost. It's also mentioned that some of the creatures here are manifestations of the people's past and Isaac's fears, which is another Silent Hill element. The problem, however, is that this game was revealed 3 years ago, and to this day, the information about it is very scarce, and its fate is an absolute mystery. According to the Twitter page, the development team is very small, if not one person is working on this game. When someone asked the developers how the development was going, they replied by saying they had a break, but they are back working on it. This was 6 months ago, and since then, they haven't posted anything, not even on their Twitter page. My theory is that the developers are having a hard time working on the game and finishing it due to a lack of resources, whether financially or team size. It might be that the developers gave up on it completely, or they are simply waiting to find some support. To be honest, I don't know for sure what's happening, but as someone who's been waiting for this game since ever, I'm starting to lose hope. I'm positive it's real, by the way, but it's one of those projects that makes you feel like the creators are struggling to finish it. So until we hear future news or see new footage, I'm not sure if we will ever put our hands on this promising, chilling game.
You there, Mike? I made my way in.
To be honest, I hesitated to add this game to the list today because I explained my opinion on its future before, and I thought it was obvious for everyone if this game was coming or not. But apparently, I didn't realize that many people still actually have hopes for it and are waiting for its release.
Jesus!
First of all, we need to explain what this game really is. And if we're being honest, none of us really know what this game is about because the story and gameplay seem to change all the time, and no one knows what exactly it is. Initially, the story is about a peaceful settlement that has been overrun by grotesque, monstrous creatures, which basically look like freaks and not zombies. The player here is seemingly a police officer who must navigate this nightmarish environment, searching for clues and piecing together the events that led to the outbreak. Regardless of any story or narrative, the one thing that caught people's attention here is the unbelievably realistic visuals and the incredible gameplay. When people saw this back in 2021, everyone was basically ready to pre-order the game in a heartbeat, including me, to be honest. The first-person view, the stunning visuals, the oppressive setting, and the smart, spooky enemies who can even throw stuff at you all convinced me to see this game as the Resident Evil killer. However, if something looks too good to be true, it's usually because it is literally too good to be true. The lack of updates, the identity of the developers, and the anonymity of the studio behind it are more than enough evidence to make me dismiss this game and believe it's never happening. First of all, the last gameplay we got for this game was 3 years ago, in 2021. And since then, we have never seen any actual gameplay. Secondly, the studio behind this game is called Team Clout, and it's basically a team of 5 people, most of whom are mobile game developers, while the leaders are 2 designers. The main guy in this team is called Oleg Vidovenko, and he's a 3D artist known for his work on fictional horror videos that contain a lot of monsters. To be honest, when it comes to short, scary videos, the guy is extremely talented, and his work is unbelievably realistic. With that being said, he has no history of making any type of horror game, whether indie or big. Some of the other guys have only made some Android games, but there's nothing in their record that says they have experience with anything at the level of this game. Aside from that, the supposed development of the game is entirely dependent on Patreon donations, and this is according to the team themselves. So, these guys basically have no funding to create such phenomenal games in the first place, because we all know that such high-quality titles require a lot of money to produce. However, the confirmation for all of my suspicions occurred when I saw the last video that was released for the game, because it simply makes zero sense. This absolute nonsense was promoted on YouTube as gameplay for the game, even though anyone with a brain can easily see that it's CGI, and also completely unrelated to the original footage we saw before. The aspect ratio is bizarre. The events we watch have no meaning or backstory, and we don't even see the protagonist. The visuals look cool and realistic, but I believe it's because it was made by a talented artist who works on making these types of videos all the time, and this is exactly what Oleg Vidovenko does. I don't know how people are believing that this is real gameplay. The guy is probably promoting his work, and the strategy is obviously working like a charm for him because he received a lot of attention, and the proof is that I'm talking about him right now. The difference between the other games I mentioned in this video and this one is that this is the only game in which I'm basically confident about its non-existence. I hope I'm wrong, but so far I'm not even putting it on my wish list because it's too suspicious to even consider. We've been hyping up this game for the past 2 years, and it's safe to say we've played a major role in getting it on people's radars. We featured it in several of our most popular videos, and can't shut up about how stoked we are to explore its terrifying world. However, this wait seems like it's becoming too much recently, and we don't know if we should still be hopeful or not. The story here is simple. As you all know, people in real life go missing all the time, and sometimes during their last moments before their disappearance, they can be wearing a body cam or simply recording themselves with their phones. The game puts you right in the shoes of these missing people, letting you see their final moments through their own eyes, or rather, their own cameras. The locations are as varied as the people themselves, ranging from eerie forests and abandoned hospitals to classic haunted houses. They say the game uses Unreal Engine 5, which is why the visuals are so incredibly realistic, but I believe the fisheye lens effect from the cameras really kicks the realism up to a whole new level. The game's stunning visuals explain why it exploded in popularity and why everyone's itching to play it, but it's starting to feel like old news. There's still no release date or more exciting gameplay footage, and other trailers for other games have popped up since then, all following a similar formula. I don't believe Paranormal Tales is fake, and I definitely think it's a real game. But, like with Wronged Us, I get the feeling the developers are struggling to live up to the hype and suspense we saw in the trailers. In case you don't know, this project originally started as a passionate dream between two friends, and they've been open about the challenges they've faced. So they decided to team up with a publisher called Digital Cyber Cherries, the folks behind a few Steam games, including that new horror gem we checked out last year, Don't Scream. Don't Scream has a similar visual style to Paranormal Tales, but the concept and atmosphere didn't quite grab me the same way. It's basically a game where you wander through creepy places and try not to scream when something jumps out at you. If you scream, you're toast. It's a cool concept, but Don't Scream doesn't quite live up to the expectations we have for Paranormal Tales. I'm not writing it off entirely, but I'm getting pretty concerned. I'll hold off on talking about it more until we see some fresh footage.
God, no.
For those of you who are familiar with the zombie space in horror gaming, you probably realize that State of Decay is one of the best zombie games you could play in the last 15 years. For me, it's simply the perfect demonstration of what a zombie apocalypse experience should be in a game and how it should be lived. It's not just about fighting zombies, it's about working together, scavenging for essentials, leading a community through tough choices, and exploring a world ravaged by the undead. That's why State of Decay 1 and 2 were such hits, breathing new life into the zombie genre. However, it's been over 6 long years since the last game, and fans were starving for news about State of Decay 3. And wouldn't you know it, in July 2020, Xbox dropped a surprise announcement trailer that hinted at a completely new direction for the series. The setting looks brutal and harsh, a desolate landscape that could be Greenland, or maybe even Alaska if it's still in the US. Wherever it is, it's a far cry from the typical zombie stomping grounds, which makes it super intriguing. It's a totally incredible setting for a zombie game, which is exciting in itself. But what's really got me interested is the news that they're ramping up the survival mechanics. We're talking realistic hunger, dehydration, and fatigue, which could turn this into the most intense and immersive State of Decay yet. Furthermore, new zombie types, like the zombie deer you'll see later, are another reason to get excited. But the real question on everyone's minds is, where the heck is State of Decay 3? It's been 4 years since the announcement, and it seems like even Xbox can't answer the question. 4 years have passed without any substantial updates, and this radio silence has everyone buzzing about potential issues happening behind the scenes. In 2022, reports surfaced about a toxic work environment and mismanagement at Undead Labs, the studio behind the game. These problems have cast doubt on Undead Labs' ability to deliver a top-notch game, or even if Xbox will stick with them for this massive project. Simply put, State of Decay 3 has been stuck in development hell for the past few years, and that's a gamer's worst nightmare. For those of you who don't know what this means, development hell is simply a term used in the industry when a project gets stuck in the development phase for ages, or basically forever. This can happen due to creative disagreements, money problems, or even a change in the market or the publisher's direction. In this case, I suspect it's the latter. Xbox revealed this game in 2020, the same year the Xbox Series consoles launched. Back then, Xbox was bombarding us with announcements to grab everyone's attention. But things have shifted in the past 4 years. The gaming market is a whole different beast now, and the console wars have cooled down, forcing Xbox to rethink its strategy. Microsoft's purchase of Activision also seems to have pushed Xbox towards a particular type of game, leaving other projects, like State of Decay 3, in the dust. This shift in focus even led to the closure of 4 studios last month, including the ones behind the acclaimed Hi-Fi Rush and the Chilling Evil Within franchise. It seems Xbox wasn't happy with the returns on these games and decided they weren't worth the investment. Given everything that's happened, I'm convinced that State of Decay 3 is in deep freeze. We might not see it for another 5 years, if at all. There's a rumor floating around about a 2027 release, but I haven't seen any real evidence to back it up. Games like this are expensive to make, and I think Xbox may have decided it's not worth the investment anymore. This whole situation reminds me of Prey 2. It had an incredible trailer and a passionate fanbase, but it was ultimately scrapped for similar reasons. I would be happy to be wrong about this, though. Depending on when this video goes live, if there's a surprise State of Decay 3 update during the Xbox showcase on June 9th, then please forgive my pessimism. But until we see solid proof that the game is actually in development, I have to lump this one into the uncertainty category, alongside games I suspect will either be cancelled or abandoned. Alright folks, now that we've covered the top 5 games, let's give some honorable mentions to other long-lost titles. First up is Aftermath. This game might ring a bell for some of you from its 2021 reveal trailer. It follows Charlie Gray, a former astronaut returning to a shattered Earth in search of her missing daughter. The world is a creepy mess, and Charlie's got her own trauma to deal with. But to be honest, I don't have much hope for this one coming out anytime soon. Speaking of lost games, Capcom also has another game stuck in limbo. It's called Pragmata. This dystopian sci-fi adventure, set on the moon, was supposed to be their big next-gen splash. Initially slated for a 2022 release, we got a cute apology video delaying it to 2023. Fast forward to 2024, and still nothing. Capcom's got their hands full with a mountain of Resident Evil projects, so I wouldn't hold my breath for Pragmata. However, if we're talking about gorgeous multiplayer games that seem almost too good to be true, Pioneer definitely takes the crown. It's been buzzed about for years now, and it looks like a mind-blowing mashup of Stalker and Metro, but even more ambitious. The visuals are jaw-dropping, and the world seems incredibly rich, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the final product, if it ever sees the light of day, might not live up to this hype. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment below and tell me which games you think are taking way too long to release, or which ones you think are doomed to never see the light of day. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and I'll catch you in the next one.
There's a hole in your head.